All right, we're back. Section 1.1, variables and expressions here in Algebra 1. Hey, and just full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever done this. That last lesson was my first time ever doing this recording, so I'll try to make it a lot faster. I noticed when I was done with that, 24 minutes, that's way too long. So I'll do less chit-chat and try to get right to it, because I know you guys can pause and get to the work. So, all right, the other thing we got to talk about is I know that you guys know some of this stuff, being that it's you guys are in 9th grade, and you guys have had some of this in the past. So just bear with me. I know early on here it's pretty simple stuff, but just we'll go through it here. So today we're going to write algebraic expressions from verbal expressions, and then vice versa. We'll actually write the verbal expression from algebraic expressions. So the key thing here is when we talk about the word expression. So this first definition here is algebraic expression. You're going to have expressions and equations. Today, not really any equations. Today is just expressions. So there's no equal sign to worry about. It's an expression. And what that is, we get one or more numbers and variables joined together by a positive plus sign, a minus sign, multiplication, or a divide sign. In this case, the multiplication signals, that's the symbol, that's the best that we could do here with your keyboard. So add, subtract, multiply, divide, those are your operations. What is a variable? So we talk about what a variable is. A variable is a letter used to represent a number. And so I can kind of get rid of this right here. Get rid of that. Basically, you're using the letter and you're representing a number. So we don't know what the number is. We use the letter X or Y or Z. Really, you can use any of them. We use X a lot. It's just easy to do that. It's the one of choice. But you can really use any letter you want. And then when we use this phrase term, a term is a number, a variable, or product of numbers and variables. So in this case, we know what a number is, right? We can use the number 8. That's a term. Okay. Another term you could use would be just the variable. So maybe X, or it could be maybe X squared would be a term. Okay. And you could also use a product of those numbers would also be a term. So maybe the term 3x. Now you're multiplying a number and a variable. So all of those could be considered a term. So again, why is this important? Because it's just like a foreign language class. You're going to speak Spanish in those classes. This is math class. We're going to speak math. So we're going to make sure that we are using the appropriate terms here. So algebraic expression, variable, and term. Next we have the phrase power, okay, or an exponent. Basically what that is it's an expression. Okay, so we've got two different numbers, x to the nth power. Okay, so we have two variables here. We don't know the numbers for them, but just like that example we just gave, x squared or x cubed or whatever it is, but the x squared we gave you, that would be the expression. So the exponent here, or sometimes we use the word power. Power. What that is, that's the top number up here, this little guy right up here. That is your exponent. And then the base number is the bottom number, the bigger number. Okay, that's the base number. And so a quick example of that would be, say, if we went 4 to the third power, or 4 cubed, 4 to the third power. If we did that, that's basically saying multiplying it by itself 3 times, 4 times 4 times 4. So you take the base number 4, and you're going to multiply it by the exponent number of times, 4 times 4 times 4, because the exponent was 3. And then you could easily do the math in your calculator to figure that one out. Factors. What is a factor? So in this case, factors, when we talk about factors are quantities being multiplied. Quantities being multiplied. And the result we get is the product. It's called the product. Okay? So, for example, if we use the number 10, the number 10. All right? What numbers can we get to multiply 10? Well, and we call these the factors. So 1, 2, 5, and 10. Those are what we would call the factors. So these here, we would call these the factors. Because you're going to multiply 2 of those to make your product. So if we took 2 of those, for example, 2 times 5 to get our answer 10. Well, then 10 in this case is our product. So factors are the numbers that multiply to get something, and the product is actually that answer when you multiply two factors. All right, next. So there's a bunch of different clue words here, and we're actually going to do this for our lesson summary. So we'll just kind of go through with some of the short words or shortcut words or terms that we can use instead of doing things. So we know here that this sign here means add. And this sign here would be subtract. And this little dot, you know, when we had used the star or the asterisk before, but a dot is also multiply. And then this symbol here is divide or division. Okay. And then we can use different things, different shortcut words. For example, squared. So instead of saying x to the second power, we could say x squared. It's just a simple way of saying that. So squared basically means x to the second power. So the 2 is the exponent. And our example before, 4 cubed, we could do the same thing here. Cubed would actually mean something to the third power. So x to the third power, or example from the last page, 4 to the third power. After that, they don't really have any shortcut words for the exponents after 3, so you'd actually have to say to the 4th power, to the 5th power, to the 6th power, and so on and so forth. But squared for 2 and cubed for 3 makes it a little easier. And the rest of these numbers, this is part of your lesson summary, so we'll move right past that. Okay. Okay, so this next part here is part of your homework problems are going to be like this, taking these written verbal expressions and turning them into a math problem or turning them into a algebraic expression. So the verbal one says 6 more than a number t. So we're actually writing an expression, remember, so there's not going to be any equal signs. So we have to look for those clue words or those key words that help us. So in this case, we look at more than. What would that symbolize to us? Well, more than should signify add. So in this case, we just take any number, in this case 6 plus t. And if you wrote it t plus 6, you'd also be right because you can switch those around and not have a problem. But 6 more than a number, 6 plus t. The next one gets a little bit tricky because subtraction ones are a little bit tricky because you just have to figure out which order they go. So let's look for the clue words first. 10 less than the product of 7 and f. Well, less than, that is a clue word there. And that pretty much means subtract, right? So we know we're going to have to subtract at some point. But what are we subtracting? We've got 10, and then we've got another term here, which is going to be the product of 7 and f. So we know that it's going to be 7 times f. Okay? And you can write it with the little multiply dot in there. If you would like, but I'm probably not ever going to. When we do products, I'm just going to use it together without the symbol. So 7f. 7f, that's the way I prefer to do it. And now we've got a less than 10. So we've got this number here, a product of 7 and some number f, and then we're going 10 less than that. So in this case, this is one of those where with subtraction, we have to actually figure out what's going first. So instead of just writing it down in the order 10 minus the product of 7f, we're going to actually have to use our English and figure out which one would come first. We're going 10 less than this number. So it's actually going to be 7f minus 10 because you're taking the 10 away. It says 10 less than the product of 7 and some number f. So in that case, it would be 7f minus 10. 2/3 of a number. Well, when it says a number, we really don't know what that is. Now, of is a key one. We should know what right away. Of is going to be multiply pretty much all the time. So of is multiply. And in this case, we have 2/3 of a number. So in this case, they don't give us a number. They say a number. So what can we use? You can use any variable. So we're going to use x. And then 2/3 is just a fraction. So 2/3 is a fraction. And we're multiplying it times the number. So it'd just be 2/3 x. And finally, the last one here, the difference of x squared and 4. The difference of x squared and 4. So in this problem here, difference, that should signify subtraction for us. And we've got two numbers here, x squared being one term, the other term being 4. So because they don't have a less than in there, and they don't really have a different order, no less than here, we can pretty much go x squared minus 4 in this situation to give us this expression. X squared being the first number, difference meaning subtraction, and 4. All right. So now the vice versa part. We're actually going to take these algebraic expressions and turn them into verbal answers. Turn them into verbal writing. So you actually do a little bit of writing in these assignments, but it shouldn't be that bad. So let's just do one of these, and then you can kind of do the rest to get practice on them, but I'll do one of them with you. So let's take a look at number 5 here and go 3q minus 8. So one thing you can write is just write that out in words. So it's going to be 3q. Actually, I would actually write 3 times q just to let us know what's happening. 3 times q minus 8. So I'm actually writing those words out. Okay, that's one way. Another way you could write this is to say, as we did in the last set of problems, we could say 8 less than the product, because they're multiplying, so the product of 3 and q. So you can kind of write that two different ways. It's the same answer. 3 times q minus 8 is still that expression. Or you could write it differently because it's subtraction. There's different ways. 8 less than the product of 3 and q. So there's multiple ways to get the correct answer here by writing it out in words. And I'll leave these ones for you to kind of practice with yourself. Okay, so that takes us to the lesson summary. So the lesson summary is you're going to fill in any clue words you can that you can think of that tell you to multiply, add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And so that's basically going back to this page here and taking these keywords and putting them in the right place. Well, you can write add in. So here they are, and just put them in the right table, and that'll be your lesson summary. Okay, there's your lesson summaries to do that. One thing to think about, and I know we're not dealing with equal signs, but it does help to know that sometimes the word is in equations, we have to let you know that that is equivalent to saying equal. So if you see the word is, that would be the equal sign. Okay? And I know we're not dealing with equations today, but just it's a little heads up to let you know. So fill in all those clue words, and then your practice problem is basically you have to write algebraically from this verbal command the quotient of a number and 3. Okay, so get those done, fill out the notes, and we'll see you tomorrow.